Hi, my beautiful friends. Welcome back. I'm so happy that you're here and thank you for watching today. I wanted to share my unsolicited advice on what it's like to move in and around New York City, or maybe moving to New York City for the first time. The end of this month will be my 6th time moving in New York. Over time, I've learned a lot of tips and tricks that I wanted to share with you guys today. So stay tuned. So I wanted to have a quick little geography lesson. So New York City is made up of 5 boroughs. Manhattan, which most people just call the city. Then we have Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, and Staten Island. I think a lot of people experience FOMO when wanting to move to the city and think that they have to live in Manhattan to feel validated that they're living in the city. But this just isn't true. I think the other 3 boroughs, I'm not including Staten Island, and I personally just think it's an inconvenient commute because you have to take the ferry, and if you don't live close to the ferry, there's not a train that you can take to get to the ferry. Say what you will, but if you're living in Staten Island, you're probably driving or you're from Staten Island. But I do think that if you are going to be moving to New York City and you don't know where to look and Manhattan is too expensive, Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx are all really great options that I think get overlooked by a lot of first-time movers coming to New York City. So just keep that in mind. So I'm originally from San Antonio, Texas, if you didn't know. I moved to New York City in 2018. I lived alone on 125th Street in Manhattan in a studio. It was about 200 square feet, so very modest and small. I was right outside of the 2-3 train, so it was very convenient for me to get around. I paid $1,500 a month, which is a lot, and that's really the only reason why I decided to move. Next, I moved to Bushwick, like most people, looking for affordable rent. And I lived off the JMZ Halsey stop, which is probably about 25 minutes to 30 minutes to get into Manhattan, depending on if your train is express or not. In this apartment, I had 3 other roommates, so I had the luxury of only paying $650 a month. I lived in this apartment for 2 years, and I personally didn't love the neighborhood, and that was a big reason why I wanted to move. This area is very industrial, has a lot of nightlife, is a little bit more crowded than what I would prefer, and it just really didn't feel like home to me. Next, I moved in with my boyfriend who is from Windsor Terrace, which is another neighborhood in Brooklyn. We decided that we wanted to live closer to his family, and that area feels a little bit more like the suburbs, a little bit more family friendly, and it's also right next to Prospect Park, which was a huge plus for me. We unfortunately could not afford to live in Windsor Terrace. There's a lot more houses, and it's just a lot more expensive. So we settled in a neighborhood called Kensington, which is about 15 minutes from Windsor Terrace on the train. After living there for a year, we decided that we wanted to move upstate, and we moved to a area called Rockland County. It's only an hour away from Manhattan, and it's actually closer than some neighborhoods in Brooklyn or Queens. We had an entire house with a backyard and a driveway, a basement, everything you could think of. We had it in this house. A full-size kitchen, everything. My boyfriend was still working in the city, and I had to drive him to the closest Metro North train station, which was like 25 minutes away. So that was a little bit constricting on our schedule because we only have 1 car. Plus, none of our friends lived upstate, and we kind of just moved on a whim because the pandemic was still ongoing and there was a lot of uncertainty in New York City. But we both agree that we want to move back upstate at some point when it makes more sense. After living upstate, we really didn't know where we wanted to go. We didn't quite want to move back down to the 5 boroughs, but we knew we ultimately had to for the type of lifestyle that we were leading. So we literally found the cheapest apartment, which was in Flushing, Queens, which is this apartment that we're moving out of. It's about 40 minutes on the 7 train into Manhattan to get to like Midtown Grand Central area. Although our apartment is in a little bit more of a suburban area, it adds an additional 15 minutes to walk to the train and then the 40-minute commute, which has been a big part of why we want to move. In addition to that, we moved from our house upstate, which was over 1,000 square feet, into this apartment that is about 400 square feet, so less than half of what we were comfortable with. So far, we've lived here for 2 years and we are definitely busting out the seams. But us staying here and having cheap rent kind of gave us an opportunity to strategize and figure out where we wanted to move to next. We thankfully already found an apartment that we will be moving into next week. I'll be doing a complete vlog of the moving process. I want to show everyone a quick little tour of the apartment, share some of my expectations and ideas that I have for our new space. So make sure to circle back next week to see what neighborhood we picked. So actually finding a place in New York City is going to be the most difficult part of the process. The competition is going to be very high, and unless you're able to spend $3,000 to $4,000 on a studio in a luxury building, you can expect there to be competition. In fact, the average price for an apartment in New York City is $3,147 for a 400 square foot apartment. When I first moved to New York back in 2018, I was literally standing in a studio that I was interested in possibly applying to, and the realtor abruptly was just like, we have to go. Like, this apartment was just rented out. Somebody just signed the lease, and like, this apartment belongs to somebody else, which is crazy. Like, that was back in 2018. I can only imagine how much more insane it is now. We applied to an apartment like 2 weeks ago, and there was already 6 other people that were also applying to it. Surprise, we did not get that apartment, and it's fine. We're okay. We did find something else. But some of my favorite places to find apartments are apps like Zillow is really cool. You can like set the features to like what you want. You can look at rentals, housing. I've even seen like some accommodations for like finding roommates like within a big apartment. You can also like contact the real estate agent immediately to schedule a tour. Similar to Zillow, I also like StreetEasy, which is specific to just New York City, which is kind of nice. I personally, for whatever reason, like Zillow more, but I will say continue to check StreetEasy because sometimes I see apartments that are only listed on StreetEasy that are not listed on Zillow. Although on StreetEasy, I do see that real estate agents are more likely to post a video or post like the layout of the apartment. I also like that StreetEasy offers like previous rental history, and you can like see the building and like what other apartments in the building are going for. And they generally just have like more information on each building. Both of them have a like section where you can request to tour the apartment. And it'll like send an automated email to the real estate agent that you're interested in looking at the apartment. I personally, if it has like their personal information, like it'll sometimes list their phone number. Sometimes I will just cold text that number and be like, hey, I'm interested in looking at the apartment, and share some important information about you, like your income, who you're moving in with, do you have pets, do you have a guarantor, and all that. I'll touch more on that information a little bit later, but I did want to just share that like I like to directly text the person. They don't always get back to you. They don't always email you back because the market is very competitive, but I think that kind of sets a higher standard that you're interested in the place because you're texting them directly versus just like hitting the automated email button. My absolute last resort is to just go on Google Maps and Google real estate agencies in the neighborhood that I'm looking to move to. I personally haven't had success with that. Sometimes their websites will have apartments that aren't listed on Zillow or StreetEasy. So you can do the same thing, and they'll usually have a agent's information, so you can just call them or text them directly from the website. I've also had friends that have like physically walked into real estate offices and just been like, hey, this is my budget, this is what I'm looking for, I want to be in this area, do you have anything you can show me? I did have a friend have a success story on doing that, so I think the more creative you can get with how competitive this market is, the better. Like I said, the average price of New York City rent is over $3,000. Don't think that you're going to be finding anything for $1,500 like I did in 2018, because the market has gone up, up, up since then. For example, here, I just looked up on Zillow really quickly if there were any apartments for $1,500, and as you can see, there is one. So that's the state of the New York City rental market. If you want to find affordable housing in New York City, I would definitely recommend roommates and living with other people. A good place to find roommates if you don't already have people in mind is Facebook. It sounds so old school to be saying that, but there are so many resources on Facebook for different groups of people looking for housing. You can find groups for like artists, groups for female identifying individuals and queer people, or whatever you're looking for. So definitely, if you're struggling to find a roommate, I would look on there, especially if you're moving from another state and you don't know anybody in New York. Check Facebook. You can also find sublets, which is really nice, where people might be going on vacation for a month and need somebody to rent out their apartment. So Facebook does have really good options. Next, I want to get into the actual process of once you find an apartment that you like, what do you do? So your first step is going to be contacting the real estate agent and figuring out if you actually qualify for the apartment. So most apartments in New York City will have a 40 times the annual rent criteria. So for example, if you find an apartment that is $2,300, you will be expected to make 40 times that, which is $92,000, which isn't always the case for everybody. So they do offer for you to like combine your income with a roommate or a partner or a spouse, or you can also have what is called a guarantor. So that's basically somebody that is co-signing the apartment for you that does make that amount. In addition to your income, they're probably going to ask for your like recent tax return, your bank statements. They'll ask for like your credit and all of that. Typically, this information won't be needed until you actually are going to apply to the apartment. A real estate agent might ask you like for your credit score, but you don't have to like prove any documentation until you actually apply. Every building management is also going to be different, and every landlord is going to be different. So I've had some where I literally just had to sign the paperwork and prove that I had money. I've had other places, like the one we're about to move into, that I needed like letters of recommendation from a previous landlord, from my current landlord, from my employer. It was a very drawn out process that I had personally never been through. It's a much more expensive apartment, and it's in a regular building. It's not like a luxury building. It's a pre-war building, but it kind of was a green flag for me because they were like taking in all of that information. So I know all the other people in the building also had to go through the same process. If you don't meet all of these requirements, I would definitely recommend looking on Facebook Marketplace, because there are a lot more opportunities on there that you can find somebody that's, like I said before, looking for a sublet. So maybe you can find a place to stay for a couple months until you figure it out or until you save up some money. I would definitely say not having a guarantor makes things a lot more difficult, but I know plenty of people that don't have a guarantor and don't meet the income requirement that have still been able to find places. So I think it's just a matter of working a little bit extra and trying to figure out how to make it work, because this is New York. Next, I wanted to share the apartments that I have toured recently and kind of show you what a typical layout of a New York City apartment looks like. All of them are going to be in the borough of Queens, which is where I want to live. Our max budget is $2,400, and all of them are going to be one-bedroom apartments. So this apartment was definitely our favorite. It was over 800 square feet. It's technically a one-bedroom, but it has a small office room. A non-negotiable for us was having a kitchen in its own room because we have pets. The bedroom was massive and has so much great lighting, plus 2 closets. The bathroom is pretty standard for a New York City apartment. This apartment is located in Kew Gardens, which is off the E and F train. It's about 40 minutes into Manhattan. There's also an option to take the Long Island Railroad for an extra $3, and that'll bring your commute down to 17 minutes. This place was so perfect for us and we got so excited about it, but the landlord failed to tell us that it was $2,600, which is $200 over our budget. It was quite a letdown, but it was whatever. I was really happy to see the place, and it was kind of just fun to tour the apartment. This apartment did have a big open living room, but it did feel kind of dark. The kitchen was a good size, but lacked counter space. The bedroom was also a good size, and the bathroom was pretty standard. There was a nice long hallway that separated the living room from the bedroom. This place was located in Astoria, which is off the N and W trains. It's about 15 minutes into Manhattan, which is really nice. And this place was listed for $2,300, so it was right in budget. This apartment was the first apartment that we actually applied to that had the 6 other applicants. As you can see, there's other people walking around in the video. It was so big and so massive. Everything was perfect. It had so much extra space, so many closets, and we really wanted it, but we were not only outbidded, where somebody offered more money for the apartment, but there was also just 6 other applicants, so it made it nearly impossible to get this place. And this apartment was in Sunnyside, which is about a 20-minute train ride off of the 7 train into Manhattan. Alrighty guys, so that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it gave you some good insight of what it's like to move in New York City. And if you're thinking of moving to New York City and you have any questions, feel free to leave me any comments or DM me on Instagram. I'm always happy to help because I once was a very confused teenager moving to New York City and following my dreams. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I would love to hear from you. And yeah, so that's it. Bye!